Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday, June 20th, 2024 meeting of the City of Highland Park Zoning Board of Appeals. Patrick, may we have a attendance roll call, please?
Member Chase?
Here.
Member Trashansky?
Here.
Member Beck?
Here.
Member Zaransky?
Here.
Member Colither?
Here.
Vice Chair Yablon? Absent. And then Chair Bay.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the June 6th meeting?
Yes.
Okay, if so, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that we adopt the minutes as drafted from the June 6, 2024 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Get a second?
I'll second.
A second, okay. Motion by Member Colither to approve the minutes from the June 6th meeting, seconded by Member Trashansky. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed, the minutes are approved. We will begin with business from the public. Is there any business from the public that's not on our agenda? Patrick, are you aware of anything? Okay, nobody else here? Okay. All right, their next item is old business. There is no old business, so that takes us to new business. And the first item of new business is VAR-2024-00020. Property address is 2366 Egendale Road. The appellant are Ryan and Sydney Bloom. And can we have a presentation by staff, please?
There we go. Perfect. Okay. Yes. So 2366 Egendale Road. The applicant is Ryan and Sydney Bloom, trust, both dated February 15th, 2022. The proposal is to exceed the maximum height requirement of 32 feet. The zoning is R4 in the Lakefront Overlay Zoning District. The existing home was built in 1900, according to the Lake County Assessor's Office. This is a comprehensive referral on June 10th, 2024 by a vote of 6-0. City Council authorized the ZBA to take final action on this item. And so the request is to construct a new single-family resident that will exceed the R4 maximum permitted height, to allow 2 roof peaks that exceed the maximum height by 1 foot, and then to allow a 5-foot roof access area that will be 5 feet above the maximum height. Here's where the site is located, pretty close to the lake. The aerial, as you can see, is a fairly wooded area and is along with the steep slope zone. Here are some property pictures. It's a little difficult to see, but I tried to get the kind of the slope of the property. I'm taking this from the street, and you can see that there's a gradual slope going down to the back of the property. This portion of the house is located right here, where you can see that the grade has dropped off from the side of the property. Here's a topographic survey. The orange is the contours showing the elevation marks of the property sloping down. And the red stars are all of the points used to calculate the average grade for the property. That is what we base the height restriction off of. That is all the points from the steep slope zone, the side yard setback, and the front yard setback that make the average grade 650 feet. 55 feet as the elevation point for this project, and that is the basis of what they are using for the height. So this is a proposed site plan. The orange, so the 2 roof peaks where the roof will peak, is the request for 1 foot is these 2 points here, and then the roof access point with the roof deck area is this location here, which will be 5 feet, which is easier to see on the elevations here. The roof peaks are a little hard to see on these elevations, so that's why I had the oversight on that one. So this is facing from Egendale. This is from the south part of the property. This is the rooftop deck area, entrance portion to it, and then again the roof peaks, the northern part from the side yard, and then this is from the rear of the property. We did not receive any neighborhood comments for this property. They did go before the HBC and they were approved to have this home demolished and didn't impose any delays on that demolition. Beyond that, there was no other comments from city staff. Forestry will deal with any tree preservation during the permitting process. So, to review, this is to construct a new single-family residence that will exceed the R4 maximum permitted height to allow 2 roof peaks that exceed the maximum height by 1 foot, and to allow roof access that is 5 feet higher than the maximum height. Please use the 150 zoning code standards of approval for this process. Thank you, and yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
Patrick, I know this is a compare referral by reason of the fact that we generally do not have authority to grant height relief. It's not within our purview. Is that correct?
Yes, so on June 10th, that is when they went before City Council, and then City Council is who authorized this case for you guys to take final action here.
Okay. And the City Council has the choice of either not granting a referral, granting a referral as in an advisory capacity where they make the ultimate decision, or doing what they're doing now, which is sending it to us and let us make the final decision.
Correct, those are the 3 options.
Just wanted to make that clear. All right. Any other questions for staff?
It's really it's the steep slope that's affecting the hardship that's making us see the maximum height.
Yes, so you can see here, 660 is the highest point on the property. That's kind of what's drawing the height up the most. And then around where the steep slope is, the lowest point is 652. You can see with the contours here where the house is essentially going to be sitting at 657 towards the front of the house. And then back here in this area, it's generally 653 is the elevation point for back here.
But if there's no steep slope, it would be an issue.
Correct, yes, the steep slope zone is,
Okay.
yes, because the steep, here, I'll go to, this is the aerial. So the steep slope zone is this entire area here that wraps around the property.
How tall is the structure? If we forget about where grade is, or as defined under the code, how tall is the structure physically from the bottom to the top?
So if we're counting just first floor, this red line here, it would be 37 feet in height. The maximum height that is allowed is 32 feet.
Okay, so what's really over 32 feet is the ingress and egress from the proposed roof deck area.
Yes, which you can somewhat see here. This is where that entrance will happen, and then there's a little roof area in between the 2 peaks.
So if this property was perfectly flat, they wouldn't need any relief to build the house, but they would still need the relief for the access to the roof deck.
I can have the architect kind of go through the design of the house a little bit better, but so up here, it's a little hard to see because it's white on white, but this is the grade here and then it's kind of sloping down a teensy bit, and then the grade comes down to here as well. So the way it's just positioned on the lot is why they're requesting it. Let's go to the topographic portion again. So there's a change from 8 feet generally across this entire area. But at this point here, we're at 657 and the average grade is 655. So, I mean, we're speaking about 2 feet from the front part of here. Yeah, it's about as, but generally it's sloping down, but because of how it's sloping, it's hard to make that determination, I guess, because they're having to sit up a little bit higher because this is all part of one floor. And since this is higher up, it's kind of bringing this portion of the house up as well to keep it. But yeah, I'll have the architect speak more on this.
So in this case, measuring the height of the house really is more of it's not really a measurement, it's more of a calculation.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I will ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant. A familiar face approaches our podium.
Mr. Chairman?
If you would identify yourself for the record, sir.
Sure, my name is Cal Bernstein. I'm the attorney for the applicant.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have a new procedure where we used to ask you to state your name and address for the record, but we no longer do that. We just have you state your name, not the address. If you want the information sent to you and keep informed of anything, any developments, you can provide your address to staff and you'll be kept informed.
Thank you.
Okay. Having said that, I will first ask you to swear in. Do you?
Hey, can we swear the whole team in at this point?
Absolutely. If
Okay.
more people want to speak. I ask each one to individually state their name for the record.
Sure. Again, for the record, my name is Cal Bernstein, Bernstein, the attorney for the applicant.
My name is Rafi Arzumanian. I'm the architect for the project. It's Raffi Arzou.
She's just fast right around that.
Arzumanian.
Anybody else going to be
that's it.
testifying? No? Okay. All right, I'll ask both of you to raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, again, my name is Cal Bernstein. I'm the attorney for the applicant, and I'll just jump in and answer the question that was just previously asked. If this was a flat lot, we're talking about the peak of the roof. It's really basically a 30-foot house, a 30-and-a-half-foot house. What's driving the situation is the change in grade and how the city measures height in these type of properties. So let me backtrack and talk about the legislative history behind why the city measures the height the way they do. About 25 years ago, they decided to change the regulations and go from, instead of measuring from the street, to taking the four corners of the buildable envelope to determine what grade is and what the height should be. When the city council did that, they contemplated that there'll be issues with certain properties, especially properties along ravines. It doesn't happen very often where an applicant has to come in front of the zoning board, but it was contemplated that because of the way properties slope into the ravine, that there may be it may become necessary to apply for variances in order to build a house on those lots, and this is one of those situations. This is a unique lot. It's a large lot. You could build a very large house on this property. The applicant is not seeking to maximize the FAR. In fact, they could build a house 35% bigger than what they're proposing right here. The grade change. The grade change and this is just talking about the buildable envelope. It goes from the beginning, from the eastern point to the western point, it's almost 8 feet. And what that's doing is that's corrupting the ability to build a two-story house on this property. If you exclude the roof deck, as I mentioned, this is roughly a 30-foot house, a little bit higher. It's not a 32-foot house. And if you take it from the street, it's even more dramatic because there's over an 11-foot difference between the street and the rear of the buildable envelope. So from the street, it's going to look even shorter than it does where you're at that 660 point. So you see the street, there's actually another 4-foot drop off before you get to 660. So even with the roof deck access point, you're basically looking at a 32-foot house when you're standing at the street. The property is, if you could just show the GIS map. The property's at the end of the street. This is actually a very interesting, complicated piece of real estate in Highland Park. There's easements, there's streets that don't exist, that are still on the survey of this property. So this was not an easy property to contemplate redeveloping. But if you notice that on the west there's a ravine. On the north, there's a ravine. And then you have the meandering, it's actually a private road when, at this point of Egendale. If you go further south, it's actually public. And at a certain point, south of this property becomes private. And then you just have a few homes at the end. So it's basically a dead end. So there's going to be nobody driving by. It's a very narrow street. I don't know if anybody's been by that area. It's very narrow. It's not, granting the variance is not going to have this be sticking out. So everybody driving in Highland Park is going to be seeing it because, again, the only people who are accessing this part of the town are this house and maybe the two houses across the street. So it's basically, it's going to be invisible to everybody else, basically to the community. As I said before, there's only, if this was contemplated, this would happen, that this may require a request for variance. And I went back and, I appear in front of you fairly often, and I went back and see if I've handled any similar cases like this. And I realize each case is unique, and I'm not citing these cases as precedent. But over the last 6 years, I brought 2 cases to the zoning board with a very similar fact pattern. The first is 226 North Deerpark Park. That in 2018, this board recommended that was a recommendation to the council, 7-0, to grant the variance, and the chairman at that time said, this is the type of case why there's a ZBA. Then there's another property, which is 2185 Linden, which happened in 2019. I believe at least 2 of you were on the board when that case was considered. And in that case, there was a 7.74 difference in the building envelope. So it was smaller than what we're requesting tonight. The property we're requesting tonight is slightly smaller, and the zoning board in that case voted 4-0 to approve the variance. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the architect. He'll explain if you have any questions for me, I'm available, but I'll give the architect the ability to explain why he designed the house the way he did, and then I'll come back and address the standards. But if you have any questions with anything I've presented so far, I'm available.
Anybody have any questions at this point, or you want to wait? We can wait for your return.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rafi Arzumanian. I'm the architect for the project. A+C Architects. So, as Cal mentioned, there are constraints with this site. The front yard is dictated by the averages of the setback of the neighboring properties, so that sets the front. The west and the north, it's set by the steep slope requirements, so the envelope is kind of defined by those factors. The house, if you are standing at the property line, it's significantly shorter because you're about 6 feet, 7 feet higher at the street. And as you come down, by the time you get to where the ground plane is determined, you are about 6 feet higher than the front entrance. So if you would build this house on a flat, if you would take the ground floor where we have it right now, and you would assume that is a flat ground, the height of the house would be like 29 feet and some change, not counting the roof access. And if you add the 5 foot of the roof access to that, it will just bring it just a little bit about 32 feet, about 34 feet. So these circumstances kind of makes it difficult to get a truly a 32-foot high house. The issues are that the floor ceiling heights are not excessive. They're 11 feet and 9 feet, 9'6". The house has a very large open plan concept. Therefore, it requires deeper floor sandwich. So the thickness of the floor between first and second floor is thicker than you would have a typical house would have it. So that adds to the height. The second floor, the same way, the ceiling cavity is being used to route in ductwork to prevent having soffits and the lower ceilings. That floor sandwich gets heavier, it gets thicker to allow for all of that ductwork to fit. So some of these design issues, as well as just the circumstances of the site, has brought us in front of you to be able to get to that. We looked at alternatives that would not require roof access the way we are showing it. After researching it more, we came to the conclusion that it's really not viable because it opens the homeowner to the risk of greater possibility of water penetrating, coming in through that flat roof. So this is the most reasonable and safe way of being able to provide that roof access. The roof access is used, there's going to be some access to the roof, and of course there's a deck area that faces the lake, and it allows for my clients to be able to get view of the lake as well. So it's kind of functional and allows them to be able to have a better enjoyment of their property.
Is there an existing home on the lot now?
Yes, there is an existing home.
And obviously it was not, in your judgment or your client's judgment, worth saving that house?
No.
Okay, how tall was that house? Or is
Honestly,
that
I
house?
wish I knew. I do not know. It's a two-story house. I would say my best guess would be the first floor, 9, and probably 27, 28 feet to the peak.
So your estimation, it's a little shorter than what you're
Yes.
planning on building? Any other questions for this gentleman? I guess I'm sorry, Cal. The question I have, you said you've considered alternatives of getting the height for the roof access a little bit lower.
Right.
But in your opinion, that would create potential water problems or what have you? Okay,
Correct.
what could you describe what?
Yes,
those alternatives would be?
they make several products that think of like a glorified roof hatch. It's a glass that it opens. It comes two options: either it slides and you can come out to the roof, or it lifts on one side like a roof hatch would, but it's made out of glass. The problem is that if somebody doesn't latch it correctly, if there's an issue with the flashing or something like that, there's no saving it. You know, all that water is going to gush right into the house. This being as a structure that you're stepping up on a platform and you're opening the door and you're stepping down onto that deck, creates a barrier for that water to be able to come in.
But the deck itself is going to necessitate a flat roof. So it's not the flat roof that's causing the
Right.
additional problems. It's really you're concerned about the flashing if you were to do a different type of opening. Any other questions?
I wanted just a little clarification on what I'm having a hard time visualizing what the structure is that's allowing the roof. How does it work? I mean, is it kind of like I can see it there, but I'm not sure.
It's like a box. What's in it is that you have the stair to be able to get up on the roof, and for a person to stand there to open a door, you need certain head clearance.
Okay.
So as the stairs come, with the first rise of the stair up to the landing, no problem. But once you turn around and you start coming up, if you don't have that space above, you're not going to have the head clearance to get up to that level of the roof. And at that point, you have to be able to stand on a landing that is high enough so that you can open a door and exit. So that's what, so the whole structure is only about, don't hold me to this 100%, it's probably about 7 feet wide, and it's probably about 13 feet long.
And what is it on the exterior? It's the same exterior as the
As the rest
house?
of the house.
So it looks like the house?
Yes, yes, it's treated on the south side. The brick of the house continues up. We are looking at some panel product, metal panel, insulated or non-insulated metal panel for some areas, and the three sides that are not sitting directly on the exterior wall will be of the same material to match the rest of the house.
So because it's, the drawings obviously has to be flat, but so there's a peak, and then behind the roof peak is the access?
The roof peak is in the front. So that's what you see in the front of the house.
Uh-huh.
And about I can tell you how far back, about 20 feet or so is where this starts. So the stair is not right in the front of the house. It's kind of buried in the middle of the house. So from adjacent properties, from the street, it's 82 feet back. And from the south, it is 61 foot 6 inches back. So it's really further back on the property. So thinking of perspective, if you're standing in the street, given how far it just gets smaller and smaller. And in some areas, you will not see it at all because it's going to be, if you get closer to the house, the perspective of the sloped roof part will completely camouflage that. You will not see it. You have to be a bird flying at the exact elevation to be able to see that with that height.
Well-
Yeah. No, thank you, I appreciate it. I was having a hard time visualizing what it was.
We've
you're talking
heard
about.
that in town before. And it hasn't always been the case. Ask the developer of the Dunkin' Donuts in downtown. They had that issue, in that even with the calculations, you could still see their HVAC systems on the roof.
This is still going to be visible from the street. It may not be. as-
Yes. No, I'm not making the statement that it will not be visible. I'm just saying the impact of it is not the entire 5 feet.
Are there options, Chair, man?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Are there options that you considered with either the structure or the mechanicals that would have allowed you to bring the height down?
We did to some degree. When we started, we didn't have that 1 foot at all. The one that the pitched roof. We didn't have that. That came about once we got some of the structural and the size of the members and how much room we need under the structure, under the steel, to be able to run minimal ductwork. That pushed it up. So, I mean, that's just how it came about. I mean, I don't know, top of my head, I can't tell you if there are other options where it would make it possible. I can't say that we have exhausted every option, but we have looked at it enough that we ended up here.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you repeat what you said the ceiling heights are for the ground and second floor?
On the first floor, it's 11 feet, and then on the second floor is 9 foot 6.
Nothing else for this gentleman? I guess we'll hear from Mr. Bernstein.
I would mention that all of this is managing in bulk. And the actual bulk, as you can see from this graphic, shows that the 1 foot variance is very, very small. It's just the peak of the two of the roof right there. And then, thank you, Pat. And then the other is the stairway. What do you want to call it? Stairway. It's a stairway enclosure. It's an enclosure, stairway enclosure, and that, again, that's sited in the middle of the house, set back significantly from the street. Again, we're not saying it's not visible, but it is at a place where that it's going to be mitigate any impression of additional bulk to the street. And regardless, the street is, if someone's walking down the street, you're roughly, how many feet higher at the street?
8 feet right at the street.
You're probably 8 feet higher at the street, looking down at this new house. So to address the standards, the first one is this a request is not based on desire to make more money from the property. The applicants bought the property to build on it and to treat their Highland Park former Highland Park residents moving back. They're not here to try to flip it or do anything with regard to that. And actually, to answer one of the previous questions about the existing home, when we went through the historical preservation process, we actually flew through it because the Historical Preservation Commission basically said that this house was just put together with several different styles. It really didn't flow well. And I was so surprised how easy it went through that process, that the existing home it was not viable to renovate just because just the way the house was built with the additions that were slapped on that house. The reasonable return, this is a very large lot with a significant slope. And so it makes it very difficult to build a compliant house that is 2 stories. The applicant's plight is due to is not a mere convenience, but to alleviate some unusual hardship. The hardship is glaring in this is the fact that there's such a dramatic slope that from the front to the back that corrupts how you calculate height in Highland Park. Did the applicants cause the hardship? No, the Mother Nature caused the hardship. And that's what created the situation where there's the significant grade change. It's not materially detrimental to public welfare. It's at the end of the street. No one's going to see it in a very private area of Highland Park. It's not injurious to other properties in the neighborhood. We have had no objections received from any of the neighbors after notice went out. It will not impair the light or air. Again, it's set back up against the ravine, and there's a lot of open space that's going to surround this house, and it will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Again, it's the end of at a dead-end street along the lake where there's several large homes along there, so it's not going to alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Again, this is a very unique situation, as in the other cases that were brought before this board when there's a significant grade change. This property screams for help to develop it, and that's what the applicant is asking from the zoning board. We thank you, and we're available for any more questions if you have any.
I have a question, Cal.
Yes.
It's kind of a comment and a question. As you stated before, cases that are brought before us each are reviewed as though they are new requests. Yes. And yet you still mentioned some cases that were similar that were granted. So my question / comment is, if we grant this variance, and are we not kind of setting a precedent that somebody who needs access to a roof deck can go 5 feet higher than necessary just to have access to a roof deck?
Again, this is a zoning issue, not a use. And what you're contemplating is how this area is going to be used. So what I'm focusing on is on the hardship with regard to the lot and what's creating this. So again, as we spoke, is that if this was built on a flat piece of property where grade is the street, we'll be really close, or we probably wouldn't even be asking for variances, as I discussed with the architect. What's really driving the request is the grade change. I acknowledge that if you focused on the use, that may be problematic but this board grants variances for 4-car garages, for swimming pools, for tennis courts, and other things that's not precedent. It's not precedent, but the purpose is not really to focus on the use and the proposed use, but actually to focus on the actual property. And when I cite those other cases, the reason I cited those other cases was not to as a trick bag, but it was basically to reinforce what the legislative intent was when the council changed the way you measure grade. They anticipated that cases would be brought before the zoning board when there's a significant grade change. And this zoning board in the past has realized that, and I'm not going to go into the details of those cases because each case is unique, but in the past they realized, by just considering those cases, the zoning board acknowledges that that's the legislative history of the matter, is that since Highland Park changed the way they measure height, that it's problematic when you're talking about properties that are on ravines, because properties on ravines slope from the street to the ravine. Every single one, on Linden, in North Deer Park, wherever you go, where the house is that's on a ravine, it's going to slope towards the ravine. That's just the way nature, but that's the unique part of Highland Park. And that's why Highland Park has a zoning board to address situations like this. We're not Buffalo Grove, we're on a flat piece of property. And there's a lot of unique properties in Highland Park, and this is one of them.
And I get that as far as the height of the house goes. Again, I'm a little bit stuck with the shelter for the stairway. And especially the architect has stated that really the hardship of not allowing that is that it would create a problem because of the way they would build it, where they'd be worried about flashing or someone not closing the roof all the way or whatever, and that would be their choice whether, to have that problem or not. I'm just saying, I might be interested in knowing what some options would be to minimize the ask, but maybe we should, if there are no other questions, maybe we should poll the rest of the board and see what they have to say.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, how about if we start with Member Trusansky?
Sure. I think that it's very obvious why they're requesting a variance. It's because of the uniqueness of the land. I understand what you're saying, Jamie, about the 5-foot access, but I don't see that as a reason to deny it in my mind. So I would be for it.
Member Beck.
So I want to go back to what Cal said about bringing those examples up to us. And I think you don't need to do that because the zoning board exists because these situations come up. It's not specific to this house. That's why we're here. So I don't think you needed to bring up those other precedents because this is our job. That said, I think there's a hardship here. I think it's a good plan. I don't think you'd buy property in this area without wanting to see the lake. And if you're going to build a suboptimal structure that's going to allow water in, I don't think we would want to allow that. That's going to create problems down the line. So I'll vote in favor of granting the variance.
Member Zaransky.
I kind of tend to agree with a little bit of each. It is a unique lot. It is, the grade change is pretty significant. And because of the way we calculate it, it kind of doesn't allow them to build their dream house, I should say. All that being said, I would support the variance.
Member Chase.
In my mind, I'm splitting it in two, and just in my head, I do see the hardship. I do understand that the grade makes it difficult. I see why the roof peaks are going to go over. I'm just think that I'd be curious to see if there's another way to get the roof access. I agree, if you're going to live here, it would be great to be able to see the lake, but it just looks like 5 feet that's a lot. That's a lot to add on to the top of a house. And I know that usually that this has been referred to us because because of the hardship and the nature, but I would be curious to know if there's another way to accomplish that without putting 5 feet on top.
Thank you. Member Colvin.
I'm going to agree with my colleague, Member Chase. And, what's ringing in my head is that the appellant's attorney counsel said that this was the only way to build a 2-story house on this lot, more or less. That's paraphrasing. And yet there is a 2-story house there. So obviously a 2-story house can be built on this lot under the height limit. So I don't have a problem with the peaks because I think one could almost argue the 2 peaks are de minimis because of the way the house sits. I believe there is a problem with the 5-foot stairway enclosure that almost from there looks like it could be an elevator shaft just as easily. It's going to be big, it's going to be obtrusive, maybe. And therefore, I would ask that if we are considering this, that we split the draft variance into two and have one that addresses the peaks and one that addresses the staircase.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's fairly obvious what my opinion is at this point. I kind of agree with members Cullither and Chase in thinking that I have no problem with the house portion, but I also have a problem with the stairway structure. And I'd like to know if the applicant is willing to provide us with some other alternatives that we might be willing to consider in order to grant the whole thing. So that's my opinion. So.
Mr. Chairman, can you give me a minute to solve my client?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Chair, I don't think there is anyone here, but would you also like to ask if anyone else would like to speak on this
When they
case?
were done with their presentation. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I already.
You're all,
Yeah, I jumped the gun.
you're all good. I don't think there is anyone, but
In
just,
the meantime, I will, thank you, staff. Thank you, Patrick. I will ask if there's anybody else here that wants to be heard on this specific matter that we're kind of already in the middle of. Seeing none, thankfully there isn't, so but it's a good point to remember for me and for me to remember in the future, so thank you.
We've all done. We've all done.
We've all done. Nobody's perfect.
You get you a little card with the order of operations on it.
You should have a punch card for mistakes. I think I'm already on like number 3. There's only been like 5 meetings.
Ain't no one replacing you.
We still love you. You're still a great chair.
Oh, thanks.
Chairman for life.
But you missed my birthday.
When you were gone, we voted you chairman for life, so.
No comment there.
Chair of the PDC for life.
I think you may have the record for like the longest serving chair. And for continuous.
No,
3 years.
yeah, it was 3 years.
Why was it so long?
Couldn't find an adequate replacement until I came out.
You weren't ready yet?
Yeah, I was being groomed.
He's still in training.
Because Nicole left.
Right, she was next in line.
She was next in line.
She was vice chair. She was.
Yes, he was. They just decided to have him jump from being a regular member to being chair without being vice chair first.
They wanted me to make sure I was paying attention.
Did you let a meeting before you were chair? Were you anyone absent?
I think like one
The meeting that I never showed up.
That was trial and error. And there was another one where I'm pretty sure I had the record for the shortest meeting. It was like one item of business. It was like 4 minutes.
The minutes.
Yeah.
I remember that meeting when he didn't show up. That was,
Was everything okay?
Yeah, that one was fine.
You just kind of forgot?
Jamie was sweating.
What do I do?
Kids came in now. What do I do? And insisted.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bernstein.
I don't mean to interrupt the conversation.
Just killing time till you're ready.
Okay, so I've only been waiting here for 10 minutes, but it's okay. I consulted with the client, and we hear you loud and clear, and this is not something that we didn't contemplate could happen tonight. We're okay with bifurcating the vote. We're pretty far along trying to push the plans because they want to start construction as soon as possible. So if we could, if we could have a vote on, I don't know if it's possible because I've never done this before, we'll have the vote on the 1 foot on that one part of the variance and then continue the second part of it.
Would you be planning to continue to the next meeting?
But the problem is that since the next meeting's 4th of July, you don't have a meeting for another month, so to speak, and that's the reason we're asking for that, because there's only one meeting in July. I looked it up today. Am I wrong, Patrick?
I'm going to
That's
ask Patrick to weigh in as to whether we can do that, and you're going to have to redo the approval order.
so I would say that the whole thing would just have to be continued because the plan sets that are in the approval order show the roof access. So new plans would need to be created to just show what is being approved, and it would get messy if we're trying to do it now, so.
I agree 100%. Kel, I think we'd have to err on the side of caution and say, no, we can't do that right now.
So let's do this. We're going to withdraw the request for the stairway, because I can read the tea leaves here, it's 3-3, and I need 4 votes. Oh, excuse me, the applicant needs 4 votes. So I think we'll withdraw that request and just go with the 1 foot. So then therefore, if they decide in the future to come back with more additional plans, we'd have to file a new application.
Okay, so what you're asking us to do is to consider the stairway structure
Withdrawn.
Request withdrawn.
Yeah.
Just have the one, just for the houses, the main portion of the house, and instruct staff to draft an approval order that's going to be commensurate with what our decision might be.
Yes, on that 1 foot. I'm not presupposing you're going to vote for it, but I heard the comments. So I think, is that okay with you guys? Okay, so that's we're going to withdraw the request for the 5 foot, and staff did a great job separating those in the staff report, because they mentioned it, they actually, in the staff report, it mentioned the applicant seeks the relief to construct a new family resident that will exceed the R4 maximum permitted height to allow 2 roof peaks that exceeded the maximum height by 1 foot, and then put a period there, and then just, we're not going to go forward to allow roof access that is 5 foot higher than the max height. We're not going to go forward with that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Cal, or staff, but if you at some point in the future want to come back for that stairway structure, you're going to have to go back to city council again and get another compare refer.
Correct. Is that okay now? Just make sure. Thank you for correcting that. You okay with that? Okay, they're fine with that.
Okay.
That's why they're here, so in case that happens.
Patrick, are we good with proceeding along those lines? Or at least calling for a vote to see if we're good with that?
We could make a motion requesting you draft a motion, a variance. To that effect, we would still need to approve the variance at the next meeting.
But
But that wouldn't help their
wouldn't help
case
their
because
timeline.
it's
Right,
still, it would still delay them a month to
Yeah,
go.
Cal, you know what, I'm also going to, I'm also going to say this is a little bit, and you've been here predating my existence on this board. I don't know that this has ever been done before, where we've kind of withdrawn part and voted on another. And I would feel more comfortable if we were able to talk to Corporation Council, get some advice on that before, proceeding, which is, again, isn't going to help your timeline. But,
and
I'd
because this
like
was
to know what the other-
referred from the council, don't we have a problem there because of the referral,
No.
if it changes?
But because they've given us final
Okay.
determination.
All right, so we
That's not going
could,
back to council. Council decided.
We have in the past taking an existing draft order and edited it, which is, I think, what Cal is asking for. Then if we voted on it with the edits
As amended.
as amended, Patrick could make those changes in the morning and get you to sign it, which would allow it to move forward. We just have to be specific on the edits.
Yes, but so typically, if that were to happen, they were usually for simpler requests of like, hey, watch the construction pattern with like the heritage tree case of making sure. This one, we would need new plans to do. So even if we did this, I wouldn't have new plans tomorrow to even give to Chair Bay to. So I don't want to slow the process down, but this one's a little bit more complicated with more steps that I don't think we can just
strike the
simply.
references to the 5 foot?
But it's still going to change the plans
Yeah,
that
it's
Patrick needs.
I think what Patrick's saying is that because it's the order, and I haven't read I honestly haven't read it, it probably cites the set of plans.
Yeah, so
And-
it has the plans attached,
It's so-
which
so
we
that's
can't
what the-
approve the approval order.
We can't just cross off the.
No,
And you can't, and we're not going to amend the plans, we can only amend the order.
So
Well,
the
the
unfortunate
architect
thing,
can
yeah,
sign it, he can amend it in hand and sign it.
It's just safer.
I agree.
So
And
how quickly could you have the plans?
it's unfortunate there's not only one meeting in July, that's.
No, but Patrick said if he had it tomorrow, he could do it. But if you had it Monday, is that still valid?
I have not done this before. It's typically Carl has ever said if like situations like this come, you just always err on
I
the
think we
side.
got to err on the side of caution. I think we got to, I'm sure you can appreciate that.
So the architect said he could have plans tomorrow to you.
Yeah, again, I think, if our staff is telling us that he's not comfortable proceeding in this manner, that he would need further advice, that I think we probably are not going to be able to do that.
You just need one more minute.
Will the city issue a demolition permit, like now?
Yeah,
So can't they just do that in the next month?
I think so.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while. It's not an easy access there either. Got to put up fencing and get the permit to start with.
Well, that's already been approved, so I don't know where.
So here's my suggestion. My suggestion is let's continue the entire matter to the July, I believe it's the 18th, whatever that date is, the third Thursday in July. And then they'll give us an opportunity to take a look at that roof, that stairway also, and see if there's something else we can do. Because they're itching to go, but they kind of, I think we feel pretty confident that we can turn the architect loose, at least with regard to the peak.
And
So,
as we were talking about when you were conferring, there's still demolition and things
Yes.
that need to be done
Sure.
in the meantime, so we won't be slowing you down
yeah.
too much.
So again, it was just, the fact that there's only one meeting in July was kind of, causing that issue. But we appreciate it.
We're sorry the 4th of July is interrupting your schedule, Cal.
4th of July is a big day for me, okay?
All right, so the applicant is requesting a continuance until the next meeting. Does anyone have a motion?
I'll move that we continue this matter until the July 18th,
Am I right on that?
2024 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Is that correct?
I looked at it today.
Correct.
Yes.
July
Yeah,
18th?
remember.
Okay. Second? Somebody?
I'll second.
Okay. It's a motion by member Caulifler, seconded by member Chase, to continue this matter until the July 18th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Patrick, can we get a roll call vote on that one?
Yes. Member Chase?
Aye.
Member Trashansky?
Aye.
Member Beck?
Aye.
Member Zaransky?
All right.
Member Caulifler?
Aye.
And Chair Bay.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Motion passes.
Have a
See you.
great 4th of July, everyone.
You too, we'll see you on the 18th.
We may see you on the 4th.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I just want to ask, may I
Please.
ask Patrick if you can, check with, surely you'll be sharing this, what occurred with
Corporation Council?
with Corporation Council. Just, it felt like there could have, and I could be totally wrong, but for future reference, not just to know what,
So-
if there was a faster solution.
I have
Yeah.
discussed with Marcus, our corporation counsel. Typically, that is a process you can do, but it's more for like adding on smaller items, not splitting the entire approval order and changing the plan
So
sets. Those are,
you're very confident about, I just thought to ask.
that's just
in
what he
case
has
something
suggested
Like
is
this happens again.
simpler, just add on conditions are things that we can be specifically motioned out and can do. But if we're changing plan sets and then changing what
We can
the request-
check with Corporation Council anyway and ask if there's a way to refer to plans to be drawn or something
I'll
such as
ask
that.
Ian, and then when we have our legal training as well, we can discuss
you.
that as a,
Just
is there a
almost got it.
process to?
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next item of new business is VAR 2024-00021, property address 2345 Shady Lane, Appelant Peter Batarsa, I'm sorry. Is Batarsa? Okay, Batarsa, all right. Staff, do we have a presentation, please?
Yes. Okay. So, 2345 Shady Lane. The applicant is Peter Batarse. The proposal is to add an addition that will encroach within the established building setback. It is zone R3, and the existing home was built in 1946, according to the Lake County Assessor's Office. The request is to encroach into the established building setback of 91.71 feet by 51.71 feet. for a new addition to the existing home, and also for the encroachment of 2 AC units that will be within the established building setback area as well as the side yard setback. So this is the location of the property. It's in the middle of the block of Shady Lane, and this will be an established building setback case, so I will be discussing this later, but note the positioning of the houses along the block. And here is a aerial shot. So these are the existing conditions of the property. This is what the property currently is. This portion has been demolished, but the foundation is still there. However, so this is only 30 feet from the front property line, and it's also only 10.3 feet from the side property line. For the R3 zoning district, the standard requirements are 40 feet for the front yard and 15 feet minimum for the side yard. It has a 100-foot width, so the total combined is 30 feet. So conveniently, it's 15 and 15 for this property. So currently, this home is very non-conforming, and for the front yard requirement, the EBS is 91.71 feet is the front yard requirement that is for this property. It's the most restrictive that applies. Here are the current property photos. So this is the existing home with the garage, and this area, as I noted, has been already demolished. So the area in blue is the existing home, and the yellow will be the proposed area of work. Their proposal is to push back the house to be at 40 feet to meet the standard minimum, and then also push it to be 15 feet outside of the standard 15 minimum side yard setback. However, they still do not meet the established building setback, which is the more restrictive and is the one that they are here for today. Also, the yellow boxes here is the approximate location of the 2 AC units. They'll be attached to the existing structure and will be encroaching kind of into the side yard by up to 5 feet, so no closer than 10 feet to the south property line. And then here is the established building setback, just kind of the average of the block. You can see the houses are a little bit closer to the property the further north you are, and then in the middle and further down here, they are pushed back, which are increasing the average of what the established building setback is. I also removed the highest number and the lowest number just to give you an average of what that would be, and that reduces it to 85.85 feet. And then I'm just going to walk you through the elevations. This is the north elevation, looking from the property to the north. This is the east elevation. This is the back of the property, which isn't really the consideration here. South is from the south property. And then this is from the street. This is what people would see on Shady Lane. There was also one zoning variation that was on file for this property. In 1990, these two structures were actually separate. It was house and garage, and they required a variation to connect the two. And since it was non-conforming, it required a side yard setback to construct this connection. And they're approved for 3-foot encroachment, so a total of 12 feet would be 12 feet from the side property line. There was no other staff comments. Forestry will do any tree mitigation through the permitting process, and the applicant received 11 letters of support for the application all along Shady Lane. And we received no other comments from the public packet posting. So again, this request is to encroach into the established building setback of 91.71 feet by 51.71 feet for a new addition to the existing home, and to encroach into the established building setback required minimum side yard of 15 feet for 2 AC units. If the board can please use Chapter 150 zoning code standards of approval.
Patrick, is the relief requested less of an encroachment that which has already been demolished?
So, yeah, I have a good. So the area that would be that has been demolished would come this way and encroach here in this area. So most of what is the addition is at least half is within the footprint of the demolished non-conforming portion of the house.
So it's less of an encroachment than what had previously existed?
Correct. It does have more bulk because of this turn here, but it is encroaching less within the front yard and the side yard.
Any other questions for staff? Member Chase?
The encroachment into the side yard of the air conditioning units, do you know if the neighbor to the south commented?
We received no comments. Maybe that's a question we can put to the applicant. But yes, didn't receive any.
Member Cullen?
The, side yard
Correct.
is where I'm going, is 15 feet required on both sides, each side, not it can't be a combined of 30 divided in different percentages?
Yeah, the minimum requirement for R3 is 15 feet.
Okay,
so-
because I believe there are zoning districts where it needs to be
Yes.
X percentage of the house, but they understand that sometimes
You can apportion it differently.
you can apportion it differently.
Yeah, it just works out that this case, it just is equal.
Well, it looked like on the one side, because they're inside the buildable lot, there's extra space.
Oh, yes.
On
Yeah.
the other side.
Oh, I get you. Over
See
here.
there?
Yes.
So that it looks like there's probably a combined 30 feet side yard. It's just, we're requiring it to be 15 and 15, and this is probably 15 and 17.
Yes.
Okay.
One more question. Are the AC units existing in this location, in the side yard?
No, they're not.
Any other questions? Okay. There's someone here who'd like to speak on behalf of the applicant? Yes. Perhaps you are the applicant. Okay. Please step to the podium and state your name for the record, please.
For the record, my name is Peter Batarse.
All right, I'll ask you to raise your right hand, and I'll ask if you will affirm or attest that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
That is correct.
Thank you. Please proceed.
So just to address a few of the questions that were brought up, in regards to, I believe, I'm not sure the correct name would be Chairman Chase, in regards to the south neighbor, which is Ninos, he is aware of the installment of the AC units in that location. His property is located a little bit further up. Of course, based on the setbacks, he's a little bit further up. So to his confirmation, it doesn't affect him, as his house will be a little bit further up. And we have a support letter from him with the sharing of the plans with each of the neighbors that we obtained support letters from. So that addresses that point in regards to the AC unit. And also just a comment, I think the utility room is right by that area. So just to facilitate some of the mechanicals in the construction, if we position it anywhere else, it may just make for an awkward use of property. If we go on the east end where we have that 30 to 40 foot setback, it would be another encroachment on that side. If we do it on the north end, where is the proposed entrance and driveway, that may just be a displeasant entry for my family, I guess, as we're proposing to occupy the property. And then the same goes with the rear of the property, in addition to the expenses related to running your coils further and trying to compensate for that distance to reach the furnace and the other mechanicals. And then I believe, as far as your question in regards to the existing place. The property did not have any central air. They had window air conditioning units, but as the other mechanicals are to be in that position, I think it just kind of made sense to keep it in that area. One of the proposals to kind of mitigate any issues would be to put some sound dampening around that, whether it's just densely planted evergreens or a type of fence with a sonopan kind of enclosure just to deflect any potential sounds. We are aiming to put high efficiency units in the house, so hopefully that will also assist with any potential additional noises that may come out from an inefficient unit. Yeah. If there's additional comments I can provide. Yeah, the plan is to occupy this property with my wife and our newborn that was expected to come yesterday, so it was a little bit of a frantic timing to plan this, and sure enough, he came a couple weeks early. So
Congratulations.
thank you, first boy. So
You look like you've gotten too much sleep.
I know, right? He's been a good boy, but nonetheless, the diaper changing at 2 o'clock in the morning is still getting us up. So I think just, yeah, in conjunction with everything, I have fortunate neighbor across the street who decided to come as well and just show support. I think the general consensus of the neighborhood was that they were ecstatic, and whatever that could be done to help recondition this property was something that they all attested to, and they just said, give me the paper, I will sign whatever it is, just as it was in very poor condition, the level of black mold. The part that was already removed was removed due to the fact that it was the original part of the structure, which was on concrete piers with no vapor barrier under. So as we decluttered the property, the floor joist actually just collapsed. So there was no ability to salvage that part of the property. My goal, as we're looking to occupy the property and with the help of our architect, we want to try to maintain as much of this property as possible. If we can avoid as much demolition. The part that we're looking to keep was actually relatively new construction, deemed solid, new foundation, carried all the components that we would like in a home for us to live. And we were planning to continue that same foundation plan, 36-inch crawl space, and so forth with the property. So trying our best to also preserve some of the trees. We realized that existing setback, the EBS, will also force us to even remove more trees, which we were trying to maintain as many trees as we could, as we're quite fond of the layout of the property. But yeah, just think we're trying to finish the house so we can move in as quick as possible. So I think that's all I have, and appreciate your guys' time. We're trying to maintain the height, character, and everything else of the property. I think the 10-foot improvement was something on its own, and I think the cleaning up of the lot was already a value add to the neighborhood. But I think that is about everything I have.
I think in your presentation and staff's presentation, you've addressed most of the standards that are required for granting a variation. I'm actually wondering if there are any board members who would have any questions specifically related to any of the standards, or if you wanted to speak more addressing the specific standards that are required.
Sure. As far as the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return, I think if we, I guess if we observe the strict compliance of the ordinance, it would not, sorry, I'm trying to read here what we wrote. Yeah, I think just to where we're at right now, to be able to reconfigure the property to go according to the EBS, it would require us to demolish the existing structure, which we want to keep and maintain. So the additional burden financially that would cause would be tremendous in light of the finalization of the architectural drawings, the civil engineering, drainage and grading, and I guess that would be the bulk of it. I mean, materials, of course, were ordered too. So there is a component that the plan, of course, is not so much the flip. Obviously, we have a growing family and trying to move into a neighborhood that we find to be safe and pleasant neighbors as we have here. So I think that is kind of that part there. I think the the nature of the hardship here is really bound to the neighboring properties. So the large swings in variance from as low as 20 feet to 200 feet have definitely caused a large sway in that EBS average. And so I think our grounds is if we're looking to make an improvement already from a 30-foot setback to a 10-foot setback, which adheres to that minimum, we feel that we are doing an improvement, and as well to try to maintain as much of that structure as we can, feel that it is a step that will make a vast improvement to the neighborhood, and still within other neighbors who are still beneath that 40-foot minimum, and one almost right at the 40-foot. So I think it falls in line with, I believe, one of the other questions was the character and the nature of the properties. There's no crazy structure that we're looking to place there. It's kind of in line with all the other structures on the street. And I think that is it that I have.
Okay, thank you. I think you did a pretty good job, especially
Thank you. Yeah,
off the
I
cuff of addressing them, so.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was expecting tonight, so I just.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
No problem.
thank you.
All right, any questions for the applicant? Is there anyone
I
else?
do have-
Oh, you do have a question?
Yeah.
Wait until the last minute.
Well, yeah, Patrick, could you bring up the slide that shows the buildable area? That one. Did you give consideration to the addition, the renovation, such that more of the addition would have gone into that orange box and brought the house further back? Not knowing the layout of your house, I have no clue.
I think the goal was, with the existing layout and the new proposed layout, we wanted to maintain the same amenities, bedrooms, and features. So despite that L shape that we had, what carried that space was a kitchen, a full bathroom, and a guest bedroom. So the proposed use here would be to, once again, have a kitchen, a kitchen, a guest bedroom, and bathroom as well. I think we were looking at the space, and basically we have the 3-car garage, and then the main entrance will be that side point. So I think if we kind of tightened it a little bit more, it would make for a very narrow entryway. So we're trying to be kind of considerate of, for the size of that home, to maintain somewhat of a nice entrance that didn't seem too tight, and as well allow us to enter that third garage. So that third garage kind of comes close to that point. So if we did bring it in closer, it might make for a difficult access and entry for that vehicle to enter into that third space.
My point is that on the right side of the screen, as we are looking at it, there's a significant area within the buildable box.
Oh, I see.
And
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Not, as I said, not knowing on what's on the back side of your house, I didn't know if it was,
I think my neighbor could attest to probably one of the largest oak trees on the whole property is right behind that, right behind the kind of north end of that part. So that was a tree that we were planning on keeping, just due to its sheer size. So if we did have to build backwards, we would have to be removing that tree.
and you'd be before us for a heritage tree removal.
Yeah, probably.
So,
Yeah.
okay, that's sort of what I was trying to get at. Why a rationale for why that area wasn't considered?
And I imagine the plan as you've drawn it is more feasible than trying to squeeze everything into behind the house now.
Exactly, yeah. I think right where that blue part is, there's like a powder room and that's a mechanical room. So I think when we talked about it, it would just make for a really awkward design at that point. And this design really allowed us to kind of maintain that structure where it breaks up the house nicely. And though it's a unique shape, my wife and I are very fond of it, and we kind of made it out to be something quite nice. But yeah, the trees is kind of the big thing there. There's quite a few back there.
Any other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant? If you approach the podium and... Could you state your name for the record, please, sir?
My name is Don Kogel, Cowgill.
All right, I'd ask you to raise your right hand. And if you will affirm or attest that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Can I have them sign in real quick?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I've been in that neighborhood in the house I'm in, which is across the street from his house for 45 years. I've lived in that neighborhood for 50 years. It used to be called Pumpkin Center back in the day. The house that he's taking down has been pretty much an eyesore for the last 6 or 7 years since the Danleys left. They just kind of left it. And if he has to move his house back to the new 100-foot, everything that's there would have to be torn down. And directly behind the north end of his property, there is an oak tree that I cannot get my arms around. I took a couple pictures of it today. I don't know if you need to see them or not. But directly south of that, there are 2 other oak trees, not quite the same size, but still massive old oaks. And in the neighborhood, since I've been there, there are some huge houses that have been built, and, you know, they just take the trees down, build these huge hotels, and then plant some other trees to make up for it. But you can't, I mean, I only sound like a tree hugger, but I am. And that would be one reason. The other reason is he's moving in with a family. They're going to live there. It's not a developer moving in to spin around and make a bunch of money. So I would just ask you to grant this.
Thank you. Any questions for this gentleman?
Why do they call it Pumpkin Place?
Pumpkin Center,
Yeah, why do they call it that?
because they actually had pumpkin patches growing out there, the little truck farms, truck patches. Yeah, it was a well and septic part of Highland Park that people didn't really know much about. But, you know, those days are long gone now.
Thank you.
Okay?
Sure. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak on behalf or against, or have anything to say on this matter? Seeing no one, I guess it is time to poll the board. We will start with Member Chase.
Well, it looks to me like that they've met the standards. The hardship being the variances of the setback lines, and he's moving it back from where it is now. And I'd be inclined to approve it.
Thank you. Member Trushansky.
I agree with that. I'll also add that it seems to be really well thought out. I like the fact that you actively engaged all the neighbors. So I would be in favor of granting it.
Member Cullither.
I'm going to agree with my colleagues. I want to thank you. You did a great job this evening. I think the fact that it is going further back from the street than the formerly existing wing, I guess is the best way to put it, is a benefit to the neighborhood and therefore a benefit to Highland Park. I think the fact that you're trying to take an old house and modernize it for 21st century living, you know, is a benefit that the community will benefit from, rather than, as the neighbor has stated, you know, tearing it down and building something totally from new. So I do believe you've met the requirements for the variance. So thank you.
Member Zaransky.
I agree. I think it's certainly an improvement and enhancement for the neighborhood, and I think it's a good plan. I don't love the air conditioners in the side yard, but if no one else on the board has an issue with that, I don't either.
Thank you. Member Beck.
I have nothing to add. I support.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I have nothing pertinent to add either. I'm in total agreement with everybody else favoring it, and I would support this as well. So, having said that, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that we adopt the draft order as presented.
Member Beck will second.
Motion by Member Cullither to adopt the draft order as presented, seconded by Member Beck. Patrick, may we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Member Chase?
Aye.
Member Trushansky?
Aye.
Member Beck?
Aye.
Member Zaransky?
Aye.
Member Cullither?
Aye.
And Chair Bay?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, next item on our agenda is staff report. Is there, we'll find in a minute. Is there a staff report? Patrick?
There is no staff report.
There is no staff report. Okay. Anything under miscellaneous?
There is nothing.
Nothing? Nobody's here that has anything more to say? Still no miscellaneous? All right. I guess that leads us.
You can leave.
Yeah, you're all good. Thank you. Okay. We're not far behind you because it's time for adjournment. Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn, Member Zaransky?
I'll second.
Motion adjourned by Member Zaransky, seconded by Member Trushansky, the famous tongue twister. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.